Hey there. Ever feel like you're building a house of cards when you code? Like trying to put
Mhm.
together something really complex with tons of little pieces.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Today's deep dive is going to give us like a blueprint for a more elegant approach,
Okay.
especially in the world of C++ BOM. We're
Yeah.
talking about the builder design pattern.
And trust me, it's way more exciting than it
I
sounds.
hope so.
You know how sometimes you end up with these massive constructors in your code that are just a nightmare to work with?
Oh, yeah.
The
See,
builder pattern swoops in with a way more organized way to create those complicated objects.
you've handed us this really interesting presentation. It's titled Builder.
Okay.
It seems to be like
Oh.
Module 2 from a larger series. It's dated October 14th, 2023, authored by Roberto Sheraton Camplun, and it dives right into C++ and this builder approach.
Yeah, what I like about this presentation is how it breaks down this like seemingly complex pattern into, manageable pieces. It really emphasizes the value of constructing objects step by step,
Oh.
rather than trying to do it all at once.
So instead of one giant unwieldy constructor,
Right.
imagine this. You're building, let's say, a pizza. Because who doesn't love pizza?
Who doesn't love pizza?
And it wouldn't just throw all the ingredients in a bowl at once, would you?
Definitely not. You'd start with the crust, then the sauce, the cheese, and each step kind of builds on the previous one. The builder pattern brings the same logic to coding.
Okay.
It creates a clear process for building even the most elaborate objects.
And the presentation really emphasizes this point with an example of building different kinds of pizzas.
Mm-hmm.
Hawaiian with ham and pineapple, vegetarian loaded with veggies. It even includes code snippets for each step, which we'll definitely take a closer look at later on.
Yeah, and that's what makes the builder pattern so powerful.
Okay.
It's just like having separate stations for each pizza ingredient. You have these separate builder classes that handle specific parts of the construction process.
Okay.
It makes your code cleaner and much easier to manage.
So instead of one chef trying to do everything, you've got a team of specialists, each handling their own part of the process.
Yeah.
And there's this director class that acts as, well, the director, making sure everything happens in the right order.
Precisely. The director has the recipe, or like the blueprint, and it instructs the builders on what to build and when. It's all about clear communication and a well-defined process.
A presentation even includes a UML diagram to illustrate this whole interaction between the director, the abstract builder, the concrete builders, and the final product. It really helps visualize how it all comes together. Have you ever used these kinds of diagrams yourself?
Oh, absolutely. UML diagrams are like roadmaps for your code, especially when you're working with design patterns.
Right.
They show you the relationships between different parts of your code, which can be incredibly helpful when you're trying to understand a complex system or explain it to others.
It's like having a blueprint for like a perfectly organized kitchen
Exactly.
with designated areas for prepping each ingredient.
Exactly. And just like in a well-run kitchen, the director in the builder pattern, it doesn't actually create the object itself.
Okay.
It delegates that responsibility to the builder objects, providing them with a step-by-step plan.
Okay, so the director is like the head chef calling out the orders, but not actually like chopping up the veggies themselves.
Got it.
Yeah.
Now, this presentation highlights why that's so beneficial when you're dealing with objects that could have multiple variations
Right.
or representations. The builder pattern makes sure the construction process is consistent no matter what you're building.
So whether we're making a classic margarita pizza
Right.
or a super supreme with all the toppings,
Yeah.
the process stays organized.
Precisely. And that's where these concrete builder classes come in.
Oh.
Each one knows how to assemble a specific variation of the product.
Like having a dedicated pizza chef for each style.
Right.
One for thin crust, one for deep dish.
Exactly.
I'm getting hungry just thinking about it.
And that's the beauty of it. You can add new pizza types without messing up the existing code.
Okay.
Need a gluten-free option?
Yeah.
Just create a new concrete builder for it. You don't have to touch the other builders or the director at all.
Now that's what I call elegant coding.
Right.
This presentation actually touches on that. Like we're adhering to this open-closed principle.
Yes.
Open for new pizza styles,
Yes.
but we don't have to go back and modify what's already working.
Absolutely. It's about building software that can adapt and grow without turning into, a tangled mess.
Right.
And this presentation does a great job of illustrating that with the code examples it provides.
Right. Like we see the pizza class,
Okay.
which represents the complex object we're building.
Right.
It's got all these attributes like dough, sauce, cheese, toppings.
And instead of creating a pizza object directly,
Right.
we use the builder pattern to put it together piece by piece.
Okay.
That's where this constructor pizza class comes into play.
Okay.
It's like the master blueprint for all our pizza builders.
Yeah. So constructor pizza lays out the essential steps,
It's exact.
like construer masa for making the dough, construer salsa for the sauce, and so on.
Right.
It makes sure every builder follows the same basic recipe.
And now we get to the really interesting part.
Okay.
The concrete builders. Constructor Pizza Hawaiiana and Constructor Pizza Vegetariana.
Okay.
Each one inherits from that Constructor Pizza blueprint,
Right.
but adds its own unique touches.
Okay, so our Hawaiian pizza chef would add ham and pineapple
Right.
during the construction phase step,
Right.
while the vegetarian chef would load up on veggies.
You're getting it. Each concrete builder has its own specialized knowledge,
Okay.
just like chefs with their own signature dishes.
It's fascinating how this pattern breaks down something that seems complicated into these really manageable modular pieces.
And it's not just about pizzas either.
Right.
Imagine building a house.
Yeah.
You wouldn't pour the foundation, erect the walls, and install the roof all at the same time, right? This approach applies to software too. And this modularity keeps your code clean, organized, and easier for you or other developers to understand.
So we've got the blueprint, the director calling the shots,
Right.
and the specialized builders doing their thing. It's like a well-oiled machine. This is reminding me of, those cooking shows where they have all the ingredients prepped and measured out in little bowls beforehand.
Exactly. It streamlines the whole process. And speaking of streamlining, the builder pattern doesn't just make your code cleaner, it also makes it more flexible.
Ooh, tell me more about that.
Well, remember how we talked about the builder pattern allowing for different representations of the same product?
Right.
This means you could use it to create, say, a JSON representation of your pizza object
Okay.
and an XML version, all with the same underlying code.
Wait, so 1 minute it's a pizza on my screen, the next minute it's like lines of code. That's wild.
It's like having a magic pizza oven that can bake your pizza and then instantly translate it into different culinary languages.
Okay, that's a delicious analogy.
Right. So to sum it all up, the builder pattern gives us like a really elegant way to build complex objects. It's like having a master chef guiding the process,
Yeah.
making sure each ingredient is added in the right order.
Exactly. And just like a seasoned chef understands how to adapt a recipe, the builder pattern gives you the flexibility to create all sorts of variations without turning your code into a chaotic mess.
This main function in the example code really brings it all together, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It shows how to actually use these concrete builders to create different pizza instances.
It's like watching the final assembly line in action, right?
Yeah.
You see how the code creates those Constructor Pizza Hawaiiana and Constructor Pizza Vegetariana objects, and then calls the construction methods in the correct sequence, building the dough, then the sauce, the cheese, and finally those, unique toppings.
And the best part is, if we decide to add a new pizza to the menu, we don't have to touch any of the existing builder code. We simply create a new concrete builder for our new pizza and tell our director class to use it. That's the beauty of the open-close principle in action. The builder pattern encourages this approach, which is all about writing code that is open to extension but closed for modification. It's like adding a new station to our pizza assembly line without disrupting the flow of the rest of the kitchen.
Right, and this leads to cleaner, more maintainable code overall, right?
Yeah, absolutely. By separating the construction process from the object itself, we create these modular, reusable components, and this makes it easier to understand the code, track down bugs, and add new features in the future.
So for you listening out there, if you're wrestling with complex objects in your code, the builder pattern might be just the recipe you need. It's like trading in your messy kitchen for a streamlined professional setup.
And remember, this deep dive just scratched the surface. There's a whole world of software design patterns out there, each offering, elegant solutions to common programming challenges. So keep exploring, keep experimenting, and most importantly, keep that curiosity burning.